Running a small business means I wear lots of hats. When I put on my hiring hat, I can count on LinkedIn Hiring Pro to make it easy. LinkedIn Hiring Pro helps manage my hiring workflow, puts my job post in front of a unique network of professionals, and matches me with the best candidates for my business. I can also share my job with my network. No other job site lets me do that. No wonder most small businesses say they'd use LinkedIn Hiring Pro again. Hire right the first time. Post your job for free on LinkedIn today at linkedin.com/quality.
Hi, and welcome to Kay Let's Talk, the podcast where we break down storytelling across books, television, and film with a special love for book-to-screen adaptations. Here, we talk about craft, character arcs, structure, dialogue, visual language, and the creative choices that shape how a story lands. If you like thoughtful conversational deep dives into the stories you can't stop thinking about, you're in the right place. Let's talk.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. This week, we are going to be continuing on with the series talking about all of the music in Heated Rivalry, going episode by episode and breaking down all of the soundtrack and score moments in each episode. And this week, we are on episode 3, which is Hunter. This little mini-series on the podcast was inspired by an article titled Power Play Behind the Music of Heated Rivalry, which talked about Jacob Tierney and how he used music to shape Heated Rivalry and his interpretation of the source material, and how central it was to his creative process when working on the show. So as we've been going through each episode, I think it's been really fun to have conversations with people about their favorite musical moments, about their favorite moments from the score and the original score that Peter created for the show, how all of these choices came together when they were actually putting the show together in the editing rooms, and all the lore that can be found in the lyrics and these very intentional song choices that Jacob has used in his show that he created. So this week we're going to be talking about 2 new characters, Scott and Kip, and how music is going to shape their story and their episode, which is episode 3. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the very first song that we hear in episode 3 is I'll Believe in Anything by Wolf Parade, which is the most, I would argue, iconic song of the series. I think it's really kind of taken off in terms of pop culture. I know that in the height of the Heated Rivalry, lore and fandom developing, this song was being played everywhere along with All the Things She Said. And so this is the first of 2 times we will hear this song used in the show. And it's important that it's being used here in particular. The band itself is a Canadian indie rock band from Montreal that formed in 2003, and this song was on their 2005 album called Apologies to the Queen Mary. And we hear the very visceral notes at the beginning of I'll Believe in Anything at the top of this episode in order to recontextualize a scene we've already watched in episode 2, where we were previously in Shane's point of view. And in this episode, we are going to be looking through Scott and Kip's point of view. So we take that same moment, and instead of zooming into Shane's reality, we zoom into Scott's. And once we hear these notes, we can then connect the notes to Scott again in episode 5 when they start to play on the ice after he wins the cup. And this shift in the perspective and the point of view is an interesting plot device because up until this point, we have entirely remained within Shane and Ilya's point of view, and the plot is central to them. And this is the first time we're introducing multiple points of view for a moment that we've already watched on screen. So when we see the camera zoom in and we see Shane taking out his phone, we then move to the left past Shane and we get this uptight shot on Scott's face before they cut to the audio of the Man in the Crease podcast, and we see New York and we hear commentary about Scott and how he's playing and how he's in a bit of a slump. And the beginning of the song starts to play in the background. And then interestingly, it stops when Scott rips the headphones out. So it's implied that this song is playing over the scene for the viewer, but then it also is playing kind of in a muted way in the background for Scott, and then stops when he rips his headphones out. Now, I understand, obviously, that he was listening to the podcast in his headphones, and he couldn't have been listening to the song too, but I thought it was a really interesting creative decision to cut the song at the same time that he rips his headphones out of his ear in frustration. We also knew when this episode aired that this particular song title was going to be the title for episode 5, so it links the episodes for the viewer subconsciously as well, and I think that's a really brilliant way to link characters and moments to a song and to a theme, because we also see the lyrics of this song come up in dialogue in episode 3 between Scott and Elena, but also themes of this song in particular are woven into Shane and Ilya's story arcs too, especially the theme of them leaving the dark and shadowy hotel rooms that we've seen them in through episodes 1 and 2, and then entering into the sunlight by the end of episode 6. So this is really a deeply important song, and we know that Jacob has spoken to that in numerous interviews throughout the press junket as well. In terms of the lyrics themselves, Spencer Krug had talked about writing the song and said, I used to really beat around the bush with a lot of vague poeticism, and even though I definitely do that in this song too, maybe not so much as compared to the rest of the record, the lyrics were sincere. I felt really bad at the time when I wrote that song. I felt bad for hurting my partner's feelings, and that song came out. There's a truth to it. It's an honest song. It's still fun to play this song, and it's the only song that we've played at basically every single show we've ever done. It never stops being fun to play live because people enjoy it, and that made us feel like we were doing something worthwhile, which I think is really nice to hear that. And also, that they're going to forever be cemented into pop culture with this song now that it was used this way in Heated Rivalry. The next song that we hear is called Never in a Million Years by Alvin Stardust, and this song originally came out in 1975. So when Scott enters the smoothie shop, the song is playing over the speakers. So again, we hear it as a audience member, but the characters can hear it too because it's playing inside of the smoothie shop. And when Scott sees Kip, he's holding an art history textbook, and the lyrics start nearly at the very top of the song. And the first lines that we hear are, "When the young days disappear, will I leave you or deceive you? Never in a million years. Baby, I'll still love you through the sunshine and the tears. Will I ever hurt you or desert you? Never in a million years." And then as they start talking, obviously their dialogue is being prioritized in the audio, so we don't get to hear the lyrics quite as clearly, but they continue. "In a different sort of way, I'll tell you each and every day, I love you, through the good and through the bad, in the happy and the sad. There'll be just me and you. Oh, baby, I'll stand by you through your problems and your fears. Will I cheat you or mistreat you? Never in a million years." And the scene breaks right at the end of that line, so it's perfectly timed, and that's when we see Kip starting to peel the banana, and a new song begins to play over the speakers in the smoothie shop to indicate the passing of time. But what I love about this choice, first of all, is that it's a song from the 70s, which you'll see how they all are kind of connected in this moment to that era, but the song brings up sunshine. So that sunshine theme, again, is being woven into their story, and I think it's also important to remember that Scott and Kip's story as a whole is much more meet cute, insta love. It's a very different trope than Shane and Ilya, so the music that's going to be woven into this episode is inherently different, and so having a song like this be representative of the first time Scott sees Kip and Kip sees Scott is appropriate, because that would indicate to us as viewers that that insta love is going to be happening between them. And so the soundtrack that we hear throughout the episode kind of reaffirms that notion. The next song that plays when Kip is blending the smoothie is a song called Tropicana by Rosemary Cameron and Carrie Parter. And this is a duo from Alberta, Canada, and the song is also from the 70s. And the artists themselves had spoken about what it had meant to them to have their song featured in a show like this all these years later, and they said that it meant a lot to have their music still feel relevant enough to be put on the same page as artists like Feist and the other well-known Canadian artists that Jacob chose for his soundtrack. And this particular song has a much slower tempo, but it still feels very appropriate to be something playing inside a cafe or a smoothie shop. And it's much more instrumental at the beginning. And so when Scott is looking at Kip with interest and Kip's, not paying attention to his eyes on him, that's when the lyrics begin to play. And it says, "There was not a cloud when it began to rain. The wind was blowing strong to keep the heat." And then that's when the blender starts to run. So we get this secondary passage of time, and Scott is trying the smoothie after Kip has made it for him. And that's when we get the third song in this cafe. But this song in particular is yet another reference to rain and clouds and sadness and darkness and wind blowing. So weather, once again, is a central theme here. The next song is called Lover's Land by Marguerite Lewis and Grace Tennessee, and this one came out in 1995, and this is when Scott leaves the smoothie shop, and it's the last song to play inside Straw and Berry before he heads out into New York, and the song kind of closes the scene out. So it starts at the beginning of this song too. We hear the instrumentals first, and then the lyrics are in the background while the characters are speaking to one another. And the lyrics of this song are also used to create some foreshadowing. So the lyrics are, "Think of the future, forget about the past. I know our love will last. Every day and every night, I need you near me to make things right. Lead me on." And this is when we get a scene break, but I love the continued lyrics here, which are, lead me on to a lover's land. I can't give you everything my heart desires. Oh, but I promise, darling, that I'm going to try. My feelings are real, and if yours are the same, years from now, our love will reign." So I think, again, if you dig into these song choices, there's a lot of lyricism that is very applicable to the characters and the character arcs as well. The next song that we hear is called Hungry Like a Tiger by Jared Mees and the Grown Children, which came out in 2008. And it is the song playing in the bar when Kip is watching Scott's hockey game on TV. So we see Kip anxiously watching the game on TV, trying to get a glimpse of Scott, and he's ignoring his friends in favor of the game. And the song is playing within the bar again, so the characters themselves would be able to hear this song too. It's kind of muffled in the background, so you can't really make out the lyrics all that well, but the beat of it is very up-tempo. It's very fun. And the lyrics are meant to give us insight into Kip's feelings here, which ironically are hungry and lusting for Scott as he's watching him on TV. So some of the lyrics are, "I'm breathing good air through good lungs with a good heart beating, and a problem ain't a problem unless you keep on feeding it. Because it's hungry like a tiger, we've got that tiger by the toe. Unless it hollers for its mama, we ain't gonna let that tiger go, oh no." So I thought that was a little clever way to insinuate that Kip's got it bad. He's got a bad crush on Scott. The next song is called Dream of You by Inside Cuts, and this song came out in 2023, and this is when Scott returns to Straw and Berry for another smoothie. And there is another song playing in the background before Scott walks in, but it's nondescript with no lyrics, so I couldn't really find it. It's more of like an atmospheric, clubby type song. But I think its purpose is to insinuate that there's chemistry and a vibe between them and developing between them. And that's when we then cut to this song playing in the shop called Dream of You. And the lyrics are, "Every time I close my eyes, I dream of you. I think you do too." And that's when Scott says to Kip that he hopes to see him on his next game day. And he's planting the seeds of interest with Kip. And this song is a mirror of that too. The next song is Your Body by a band called Night Lunch that came out in 2020. And this is what's playing in the bar, the Kingfisher, when Elena tells Kip to fix his work schedule and make himself available at the smoothie shop so that he can run into Scott again. And this is the first of two songs in the episode by this artist. They're a Montreal-based creep pop band. And the song playing over the speakers is once again used while Scott is playing hockey on TV and Kip is trying not to make it obvious that he wants nothing more than to watch the game on TV. And we see Elena put it on and confront him about what's going on with Scott. And she advises Kip to clear his schedule so that he'll be available on Saturday before his next home game. And it's again insinuating there's a vibe between them. He's been obsessing over Scott, and his friends are catching on to it now. So the song kind of mirrors, again, Kip's internal thoughts here and his emotions and how he's trying to get a handle on what this crush is and what it could turn into, and whether he's reading into Scott's behavior or not, and trying to play it cool, but clearly is not doing a very good job of it. The next song we hear is one called Half on a Co by Nate Rose, which came out in 2020. And this is just playing in the background when Kip tells Scott that his smoothie is free on that next Saturday before his home game. This song in particular, again, I think it's just meant to be kind of a reference to cafe music, but the lyrics in general are referring to the singer working Sunday to Sunday. So there's a mirror there with Kip making his schedule even more busy when we've seen him in this episode express that he's working multiple jobs in order to make money, and he's voluntarily signing up for another shift in order to make himself available to Scott here. So again, I think the lyrics kind of mirror what's going on narratively in the story. The next song is called Stay Up Late by Jeff Cormack, and this is when Scott invites Kip to his game and they have the spree killer conversation. This song was released in 2013, and the artist, Jeff Cormack, is a folk artist who's originally from Colorado. The lyrics of this song are, "Hey little love, where can you be? You're all right standing next to me. We'll just watch days fade away, drifting between rising and dreaming. Hey little lover, bubble, where will you be? You're all right standing next to me. We'll just watch the days fade, drifting between icy dreams and hope. We are tough, we are wild, but still we got time, we got love. Let's stay on this line." So it's setting up the potential relationship between Scott and Kip with this very optimistic sentiment and this folky, optimistic sound that is being used here in the coffee shop to get us on board with the fact that even though they haven't had the discussion yet, the two of them are making plans. The next song is called No Breaks by Hunter, or HNTR, and it's in collaboration with an artist called Roshan, and it came out in 2024. And this is the song playing in the rink when Kip and Elena go to Scott's hockey game. And it's a very high-tempo song. It came out in 2024, like I said, by a Toronto-based artist, and it's playing over rink speakers during warm-ups, so it's definitely a song meant to get blood pumping and, again, mimic Kip's emotions over seeing Scott, being at the game, being in his seats, not knowing where they stand. And we really only hear the sub beats of this song and not so much the lyrics, given that the speakers in the rink, this is how they would sound on camera. You wouldn't be able to discern a lot of the audio from the speakers in there. Even when you're on the ice as a player, sometimes the speakers in an arena aren't that great and you can't hear the music when you're on the ice versus in the stands. So the song needed to have a strong backbeat, and it's meant to be similar to the types of songs and pump-up tracks that play during warm-ups in hockey games, and I felt that this song definitely was. The lyrics themselves, though, are about gunning a car, not braking for the cops, not stopping, going 100 miles an hour, running. So again, it's being used as a way to showcase the progression of their relationship and how now that Kip is at Scott's game, things are in motion. Things are progressing. It's heading in a very clear direction, and the lyrics here reflect that as well, narratively. The next song that we hear is not really a song that I can give credit to, but it's a song that's playing in the rink when Scott tells Shane, "You're starting to sound like him," in reference to Ilya. So again, it's playing in the background. There's a very recognizable crowd chanting beat that's going on with the crowd clapping and everything. And there's a soft electric guitar that's playing. So it's really meant to kind of mimic the type of music that plays between whistles during a hockey game on the ice. And I could not find a credit for it, but it's a great example of atmospheric music that Peter probably created for the series that, again, it's not long enough or it's not meant to be a proper song, but it's more atmospheric sound that he's inserting into the moment to give it a really authentic feel. The next song is part of the score, and it's La Nuit est longue, or The Night is Long. Excuse my pronunciation. I do not speak French. And this is by Peter for the original score. And this is the song that plays when Scott and Kip have sex for the first time. And it starts with this kind of upbeat club vibe which is very different to the emotional song used in episode 2 for Shane and Ilya. And the song almost feels like something that would be playing in a clothing store or a restaurant as background noise. And we hear it when Kip agrees to go back to Scott's place, and we enter into the apartment with them. And we follow Kip as he looks around and admires the apartment, and then he turns and sees Scott shirtless for the first time, and that's when the music dips, and there's this sort of wash of sound over the scene that happens before we cut to them sleeping together for the first time in Scott's bedroom with that blue light over them, and the song starts to pick up pace and tempo once they do, and then again it calms down when they speak so that we can hear Scott telling Kip that he's beautiful, how into him he is, and they both confess that they're mutually attracted to one another. And then the same beat picks back up again and carries through the entire scene. And the pace of it is very much mimicking their joint excitement of getting to be together. And then as the scene ends, the music slowly lowers in volume and fades out as Kip tries to get up and leave the bed. And once Scott asks him to come closer to the bed and stay, the song ends by having the last notes have this sort of grinding effect to them, and the piano is sort of the last note to drop. So again, it's kind of this abrupt ending to what was a very flowing and upbeat and moody vibe to the night. It kind of clunkily grinds along to a halt when Scott asks Kip to stay. The song that's used after that is called Lumiere by Alpha Rococo, and it's used during the Scott and Kip montage of the episode. So again, another great use of a song for a montage in this show. This song was released in 2014 by a duo from Quebec that formed in 2004, and Lumiere means light in French, so it has a very uplifting tempo and beat that's meant to reflect Scott and Kip's happiness and this new and exciting honeymoon phase of their relationship, that they're, getting into a routine and forming this whole new dynamic, where we see Kip is at home in the apartment when Scott gets back from practice and stays there when he's away on road trips and starts lying to his father about where he is and who he's with. And this comes after Scott asks Kip to stay and do this with him for real, despite the fact that he can't come out. And we hear Kip lying to his friends about Scott being nothing more than a customer and not being his boyfriend, and continuing to come into the smoothie shop where they both pretend like there's nothing going on between them. So even though the song is insinuating that everything is really positive and happy, what we're seeing on screen doesn't necessarily align with that sentiment. And the lyrics themselves, when I translated them, it says, "The arrows in my heart are less about pain than love. All the rough patches are worth the journey. A summer without winters would seem less fleeting, yet it is the ephemeral things we truly savor. We need to blow away the dust to see the days that are a little brighter. Let the light in. Life without its bumps and bruises wouldn't be as worthwhile. What would happiness be without the worst days? We need to blow away the dust to see days that are a little brighter. Let the light in. Without shadow, there is no light. Without shadow, there is no light. Without shadow, there is no light." So again, we're getting that sunshine sentiment woven into the story through this song too, which again, if you are not a French speaker, you wouldn't pick up on right away. So for anyone who does not speak French, I think that's a really kind of important Easter egg that this song is used in this particular montage scene, because even though they have what seems like bright, sunny, happy days, there is going to be some shadows. And we see that visually in this episode too. So again, that's the visuals matching a lot of the music, once again, in a really beautiful and effective way. The next song is Young and Restless number 1 by Peter from the original score. And this is the song that plays when Scott has to leave the art gallery and he gets back to the apartment, and Kip says it's okay, and Scott says it's not. I know it's not. So it's a very emotional moment between the two of them. And it's a very slow, sad, melancholic song with a very simple piano progression. And the song only lasts for 40 seconds here. It's more of a transition song between moments in order to set the tone. And it, again, is used in a highly emotional moment for Scott, but also for Kip, because we see him starting to apply to grad school. he spots some socks at the bodega and buys them for Scott in order to cheer him up and for him to bring with him on his road trip to remember him by. But we also know that by the end of the episode, the socks are actually something that becomes very sad for Scott as well. So it's a really impactful theme. I remember the first time I heard it feeling like, oh no, something bad is looming over them right now and they haven't figured it out yet. And I think the other brilliant choice in the show is that the color grading, especially around Kip, you can see it start to get more blue toned, cool toned, and that indicates very clearly for us as viewers the moments when he is feeling blue and sad and things aren't going well between him and Scott. And then we also see the use of the blue when they're hiding and when they sleep together for the first time and it's in secret and they're hiding. The lighting is very blue, and we see that again by the end of the episode too. So again, the song is very much reflective of all the other elements working together in tandem to create this atmosphere and very palpable emotion that the characters are feeling. The next song that we hear when Elena confronts Kip about all of the secrets he's been keeping is called Wall of Love by Night Lunch, which came out in 2020. So this is the second of two songs in this episode by Night Lunch, which again are from Montreal. And it's another slow tempo song that sort of looms over their conversation at the Kingfisher bar, especially as Kip is trying to deny his feelings for Scott and then has to own up to the fact that he's been lying for months now. And the lyrics are also sort of ominous for the moment too, because Elena can already tell that this is slowly destroying Kip. And the lyrics say, "I don't know what I was thinking of. I walked right into your world of love. Lord knows I hit it hard enough, your world of love. Knock me out. Knock me clear out off my feet. I don't know where and I don't know when or just how long I've been here. A day, a week, a month, or a year. You walk out and knocked me out, knocked me clear right off my feet. As I walked into whatever, knocked me down and knocked me out. As I walked into whatever, there's no escape, there's no way out." So again, a very ominous song for the moment and also for Kip's emotions right now, because he's mulling over a lot of really big decisions and really big feelings that he's having, and it's all kind of coming to a head. The next song is Young and Restless 2 by Peter from the original score, and this is when Kip finds Scott's gift in his closet, which is the tuxedo that he's expected to wear to this gala event. And this song echoes the melancholy of Young and Restless 1, so a lot of the same themes and notes are reused here. And I think this is where, because we're in Kip's perspective, walking through Scott's empty apartment and listening to his phone conversation and having him lie to his father, lie about his partner, and watch him struggle with accepting this life and this relationship with Scott that would prefer to, Scott would prefer to keep it in the shadows, but Kip wants to be able to share it with people and share it with his own dad. So it also hurts worse when the conversation with his dad is so sweet and loving and supportive, but Kip is so sad and the music is so sad. So in the scene, again, the lighting is so important here because it uses that blue lighting to depict the emotional struggle that Kip is experiencing. And the droning of the notes over and over sort of imply that Kip is thinking heavily, weighing the options. It's weighing on him emotionally, and he's unhappy. So even though there are some fluttery, brighter notes mixed into the song about 3/4 of the way through, when he looks at the suit in the closet that Scott got for him, Kip reads the note that says, "For my man," and puts his fingers up to his mouth. And those are the only notes that remain that play in that moment until the song cuts out and the scene breaks for the gala. So it's really kind of this heavy, emotional moment where the song is meant to incite this feeling of, oh no, this can't go on, this can't continue, and this dread that he must be feeling in his heart and in his, head, weighing this option. Because on the one hand, looking into this closet and seeing "For my man" and having Scott claim him like that and gift him something like that and want him to look great when he's going to this gala that, Scott invited him to and that he's a guest at, he's not really his man. He can't be his man because we just heard him having to lie to his dad and lie about the relationship, and he can't live in both worlds. And that song, I think, is really impactful. I remember when I first watched this episode feeling like that song stood out the most to me, and the notes in it felt like it really hit me square in the chest. In the gala scene, we hear a song called A Chance Encounter, instrumental, and this is when Scott and Kip first speak to each other at the bar, and it's this very typical instrumental piano music that we hear when Kip enters into the dining room and also when Scott approaches him. This is another classic orchestral song that's kind of playing over the speakers at an event to punctuate the atmosphere in the venue. This is playing over the speakers in the dining room when Elena goes in for the kill with him, and the mood between them is tense. She is pressing the issue so that they both have to confront how this whole event is making Kip feel, and this whole relationship is making Kip feel. And then the song Wine and Dine, which is also composed by Adam Saunders and Mark Stephen Cousins, is the song that we hear when Elena and Scott are dancing together. So it's a very swooping song. It kind of highlights the disconnect between Scott's feelings and the reality of the situation between him and Kip. And the song kind of punctuates a conversation about them both deserving sunshine, but it splices that with the sad scenes of them hiding in the back of a limo and driving away into darkness back to Scott's apartment while the song is overlaid on those two kind of conflicting shots because they have to be hidden. But this is a beautiful way to tell that story without lyrics and really punctuate Elena's words, which again are a mirror to I'll Believe in Anything, where she says that Kip deserves sunshine, but so does Scott. The next song we hear is You Slowly Dissipate by Peter, and this is when Kip tells Scott that he is going to go home after the gala when they are back at Scott's apartment. And we hear some of the same notes as Young and Restless 1 and 2 here, but this is a much slower song. It's very ethereal and, again, emotionally driven. It's also very atmospheric, and the word dissipate is so appropriate here because it means to gradually disperse, vanish, or scatter. And we're watching their relationship gradually disperse, and Kip's gonna vanish or scatter. And so it's appropriate that in this moment of their relationship, we're mostly, I think, meant to be feeling Scott's emotions with this song, because I think Young and Restless 2 is when Kip comes to this conclusion on his own, and he's very confident in it by the time we reach this scene. So I feel like this dissipation is mainly focused on Scott, and where Young and Restless 2 implies sort of anxiety about the situation between Scott and Kip, this song makes it seem like Kip has very much made peace with the decision. And although he's still saddened by it and it pains him to leave, he has to draw this line for himself. And so this song is kind of a punctuation of that sentiment as well. The last song that we hear in this episode is playing when Scott is giving his speech about how hockey is everything to him. And it's a song called Lips by Baxter Dury, which came out in 2014. And he is an English indie musician. And this song is very nostalgic. It's, again, got melancholy in it. And the choice for this song makes sense given the subject matter being discussed in the scene and the angle of revealing Scott's childhood and his traumatic background with his parents, because he had a very heavy and complex childhood, which probably greatly informs a lot of the behavior we see him exhibit throughout this episode and all of his interactions with Kip. And this sort of recontextualizes a lot of that for us as viewers. And this song tackles that subject matter as well. And the lyrics here say, "Oh, what's the price of being young? Tie me up for dark love. Shiver down my empty spine. Oh, what's the price of being young?" I think her lips are close to mine. Her eyes are loosely gone. Painted nails have fallen off. I think her lips are close to mine. But I hope there's sugar in your tea, and I'll grow my hair right now. Prison don't seem fair right now. I hope there's sugar in your tea. Oh, what's the price of being young? Tie me up for dark love. Shiver down my empty spine. Oh, what's the price of being young? So I think, in a way, this song musically is meant to insinuate that melancholy feeling, but I also think the lyrics are pretty dark. And again, reflective of someone who maybe doesn't realize how wounded they are until they meet the right person and they feel they can't fulfill their needs and be the person they deserve. And a lot of that trauma that maybe was unresolved and never worked through is directly affecting that relationship now. And they need to come back to themselves and figure out how to move forward in a way that is mutually beneficial and also healthy for both people. And so I really liked this choice. It was very interesting to hear this song for the first time and also with this context, and then to look up the lyrics and read them on their own outside of the scene. It's pretty dark. So again, I think the music choices in this episode really add depth to Scott and Kip's relationship, but also, again, mirror how their story is so different from Shane and Ilya's in that they meet and fall in love almost instantly. And so a lot of the lyrics that we're going to get to represent their relationship are going to be quite different than Shane and Ilya's, which is full of pining and unrequited love on, in their own heads, and a lot of trauma on Ilya's side and a lot of uncertainty on Shane's. And there's a lot more going on between them before they finally end up in that love song phase. So it was fascinating to see the differences between episode 3 and the music choices here versus the rest of the series, and how it changes yet again in episode 4, which is what we're going to be covering in the next episode. So those are all the songs in Heated Rivalry, episode 3. And I hope you enjoyed this one. This is obviously a little bit different given that it's covering Scott and Kip and not Shane and Ilya. But I think that you can appreciate all the same how much attention and effort and intentionality went into Jacob's music decisions here. And the original score, I think, also is so different from Shane and Ilya's, that it really felt like this whole moment was existing in its own little bubble. And although it is part of Shane and Ilya's story, none of the music that Peter created for Scott and Kip has direct overlap with Shane and Ilya, so it really makes them feel like they're on their own little island together, and this episode is truly standalone in that way, which I really appreciated. And the only thing that links us back to Shane and Ilya in the main series is I'll Believe in Anything and the sentiment around sunshine. And this episode is meant to be a springboard for the end of the series, and so in more than one way it serves that purpose. And I think it's really important to highlight how the music is almost imperative to that, especially the opening notes of I'll Believe in Anything, and how after watching this episode, without a shadow of a doubt that that song is tied to Scott and Kip's relationship in a way that you might not understand fully and have as big of an impact when watching episode 5 for the first time. So those are my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And as always, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. I deeply appreciate it. And I will talk to you all in our next chat when we break down episode 4.
Hi, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat, emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month. Even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending. Zero tears.
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.